Show everyone. This is the Smash Pod, brought to you by Smash Up Fantasy Sports, the only next-gen fantasy sports game where you can choose your players, select your Smash cards, and dominate your opponents. We're here to talk a little sports, a little fantasy sports, a little pop culture. I'm with my guy Hawk. What's up, Hawk? How's it going?
It's good. I'm ready to dominate. I'm ready to talk some rookies. That's like one of the most fun parts of the year.
Yeah, we're going to talk some rookies today. Rookies are because you never know if they're going to your team or just be complete bust. You're just going to drop them by week 3, you know?
But there's hope. They give you hope, which is all you can ask for.
Hope springs eternal, right?
Amen.
And that's what you need for the season. A lot of hope.
You do. It's the drafter glow. Week 1, you always want to start off feeling great before reality crushes you.
Have a good show. We're going to be talking about rookies today in our fantasy segment. So we'll be spotlighting a couple of guys who have really high draft status and some expectations that come along with them, along with some who may be overrated, some underrated. So we'll talk through some rookies from a fantasy perspective. We're also going to be talking about some wide receiver trades in recent history in light of the continued wide receiver drama out in San Francisco. I feel like we've talked about it a couple of times, but it keeps heating up. There's been some recent social news that has got people buzzing that think maybe at this point something really is going to come to a head. As a Niners fan, I hope it doesn't, but we'll talk a little bit about that. Got an interesting role players. This is out of La La Land. We've got a brand new coach for LeBron and the Lakers. So we'll see how that pairing's going to work out. I know JJ and LeBron have a pod together, but can they coexist running a team together? So it'll be interesting to see if that initial conversation from a strategic standpoint goes well. And then, of course, we got our chef's table where we'll dice up some of the interesting sports topics that are circulating the net right now. So I'm ready to get going. Are you ready?
Let's do it. Let's dive in.
Awesome.
Yes, chef.
Well, man, there was a that was circulating. Stafford's wife, Matthew Stafford, obviously the of the LA Rams. His wife was on a podcast talking about how, a long time ago they have a marriage and 4 kids, but a while back she said she was his teammate, the backup QB, to make him jealous. What do you think about that? What do you think about her airing the dirty laundry?
I mean, it's interesting, right? You don't know who to trust. Who's the backup quarterback for the Rams now?
It's Jimmy GQ, Jimmy Garoppolo.
Man, Jimmy G just keeps falling into great situations. He's going to get lucky again.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
He is lucky. Maybe not get lucky. It's
I don't know. Let's move on. But good luck to Matt.
Stafford, I'm not introducing my wife to Jimmy Garoppolo.
No,
if I'm any player on the team, I'm not introducing my wife to Jimmy Garoppolo.
No, he is a very handsome man.
If I were you, I would not introduce Maryland to Jimmy Garoppolo.
I hope I don't meet Jimmy Garoppolo. Maryland will be very upset. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of wild. She was definitely airing out some stuff that I don't know if Stafford's going to be happy to hear about. But anyway, let's talk fantasy. So
different kind of fantasy.
Exactly. So we talked about rookies and how they can actually make or break some teams. You guys with a lot of value, guys who can exceed their draft status from a fantasy perspective. There's no baseline, right? Like obviously you look at their college production, but there's no data to look at from an NFL standpoint. Some of it translates, some of it doesn't. And a lot of times rookies don't go super high unless like they literally like a top 10 pick. And so when these rookies go late and you pick them up on your teams, they could propel you to victory if they far outperform their fantasy draft status. So we got a couple of guys that we want to spotlight today. We're going to look at some guys who are under the microscope because of that lofty draft status I spoke of, but also some guys that we think maybe are a little underrated and perhaps overrated. So I'm going to start things off with the guy who is definitely going to be under the microscope, just a whole host of reasons. But number one, we've talked about him, and I'm actually a fan of his, but Caleb Williams, right? Number 1 pick. He's playing the quarterback position, and he's also been put in a position where a lot of folks expect him to thrive, I think, at this point, because, being drafted number 1 by the Bears, he's not going to a spot like Bryce Young did last year where there's like zero talent next to him. I mean, Bryce Young, it's like, how did you expect that guy to succeed? Like there was no talent around him. But with Caleb Williams, you've got their wide receiving core. So you've already got DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. They drafted Rome Odunze. They signed DeAndre Swift. You've got Cole Kmet. You've got a good defense. It's like this guy has to lead them to at least like a 500 or 8-9, 9-8 record with 17 games being played now. For this team to like move forward, less than that is kind of a letdown, right? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of like a weird Vince Young effect, right? And I say like guys like Vince Young and Tebow didn't have great years, but the team did well, and everyone thought these guys are future stars. Then you've got plenty of quarterbacks who kind of put up decent stats, but their teams lost, and we're just quick to label them as busts.
From a fantasy perspective, right? There's a lot of QBs out there,
but
I see him potentially finishing as a top 12 QB if things go well. I could see him finishing ahead of guys like Tua, Jordan Love. That's a big if, right? Jordan Love had two tails of different halves of this last season. She had a Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is getting mocked ahead of Caleb Williams in some spots. And maybe even top 10 if he plays really well. And Hawk, I know you know this, like every year, there's always some shitstorm of injuries or weird play, right? Like if Burrow gets hurt like he did last year, or someone falls off for whatever reason, that's going to propel everyone from the bottom or the middle of the pack slightly up. So I could see a world where he finishes top 12 potentially. Fantasy ranked as their 15th quarterback right now. I like him to play well, but he's definitely going to be under the microscope.
$1 million question: him or Trevor Lawrence?
Really good one. I go Caleb Williams. We talked about this.
Oh, okay.
I'm going Caleb Williams.
Harder one for you.
No, that's pretty hard. That's pretty close.
One more. Him or Anthony Richardson?
Okay. The risk and caveat being Anthony Richardson will get hurt. It's just how many games will he be here for?
You take them both, and you just
And honestly, that's not a bad draft strategy, right? You could take Richardson earlier because Richardson's flying up the draft boards. I think even since like 2 pods ago when we were joking around, like I already see him being taken as like the 6th or 7th quarterback in a lot of drafts. So Richardson has to go now, and Caleb Williams can go later. So who do you got? Who's a rookie that's under the microscope?
So the other top 10 pick, right? I'm looking at I guess every top 10 pick is a rookie, but the other big fantasy player in the top 10, which is Marvin Harrison Jr. So going to a good situation, the Cardinals, Kyler Murray. Kyler's not going to be mistaken at this stage. It's what he's done with Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, but he's a credible quarterback. It's not going to Sam Darnold. Obviously, high expectations.
Who is Sam Darnold, though? There's only one Sam Darnold.
No, really. We're asking, who is Sam Darnold?
Yeah, who is Sam Darnold?
Have you heard of him? Yeah. So, look, it's interesting. It's just a little bit of research on past, like, rookie receivers. And, surprising. Justin Jefferson, obviously Jamar Chase, Drake London, all had just really good seasons. For all the talk about Drake last year, as a rookie, almost 900 yards and 4 touchdowns. Jamar Chase had almost 1,500 yards and almost like 7-8 touchdowns. Actually, no, sorry, more 13 touchdowns.
Yeah, Jamar had a crazy rookie year.
So if you figure that Harrison can at least fall somewhere between Drake and Jamar Chase, talking about a guy who's putting up 1,000 yards and 8 to 10 touchdowns. That's a really high receiver. That's a guy you can take in the second round.
Like, despite him being under the microscope and under intense scrutiny, like, you think he's going to have a good year?
Yeah, I'm pretty high on him. I tend to favor veterans a bit more, but receiver is one position where guys can break out. And I think he's in a situation where he could do it.
Yep. I think, I was going to say wideouts, I think, from a rookie perspective, have begun to break out a lot earlier as of late. So the recent trend is you don't have to wait 3 years for a receiver to grow into his zone anymore. I was going to ask you, I was going to do the same exercise with you. So Harrison or Chris?
I think I'm going Harrison. Olave's steady. Like, I know what I'm getting with Olave, but I think with Harrison, he can win you the league, and I think he's got a high enough floor to be with it.
Marvin Harrison Jr. or Brandon Aiyuk?
I'm probably sticking with Aiyuk in that case.
Okay. One more for you.
Okay.
Or Drake London?
Harrison Jr.
With that new offense.
A lot of reasons to like Drake, but he still has to do it, right? He still has to do it. Like, I don't know. I mean,
so does Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison literally has not done it before.
No, but technically neither does Drake. We keep assuming he will with the change, but there's a risk that maybe he's not.
That's my same argument with Kyle Pitts in the last episode. I agree with you, but I think I would actually take Drake over Marvin Harrison Jr. But I am bullish on that Cardinals offense this year. I think they are going to take a step forward. Kyle Murray's fully back, he is fully back from his injury at this point. He'll have a full season. They've got some additional weapons. They picked up Zay Jones. So it's not just Marvin Harrison Jr. out there, balls. He's got some attention opposite of him. So I do agree with you. I think he's going to have a good year. All right. So let's actually move on to some guys who may be underrated from a rookie perspective. And I'll take a first crack at this one as well.
Kick us off.
So I'm going to go. I feel like he's my boy now. Conke. Oh, laddie. I really want to select him.
Forget Jimmy G. Maryland better hope you just never meet Ladd McConkey.
Ladd McConkey, he's going late. Like, he is going overall 108. He's a 46 ranked wide receiver on Fantasy Pros right now. Shout out to Fantasy Pros. We love those guys out there. But Ladd McConkey, he is part of a wide receiver room. We've talked about it already across multiple pods. It's empty. Yeah, like there's no one in the room. Like, he's knocking on the door and he's like, where's the party at? Like, Keenan Allen's gone and he's taken 150 targets with him. Gerald Everett is gone. He took 70 targets with him. And he's like, oh, I got my boy Quentin Johnston here. I got Joshua Palmer, like journeymen / rookies who haven't, or second-year guys haven't done anything yet. And Ladd's coming in. And he has every opportunity to build rapport. I actually already said on a previous pod, I think he'll probably grab 120 targets. Greg Roman there and Harbaugh, we joked around about the run first, run second, run third, run fourth offense. But Hollywood Brown, he had 146 targets one year in offense when he was with the Ravens. So I think Ladd has the opportunity. He has the ability. And Herbert, really good quarterback in real life. And his volume may be a bit down this year from a fantasy perspective, but he's going to prop up one running receiver, and my money's on Ladd McConkey. So I think he's a little underrated right now, and I think you can grab him pretty late, and you'll get a good value from him.
I imagine I'll see him on a lot of your teams. Starting next week, actually. In fact, I think we're both doing a draft next week. Might be worth mentioning.
Up and into an experts leagues, or we're early. It's June.
Sports and Gaming Association. It's the Expert League Draft. It's going to be on Sirius XM, so worth checking out, and we'll certainly be talking about it on a future pod, going through our teams.
Yeah, is after the draft is maybe we can compare teams and do a little bit of a breakdown.
I'll show you mine if you show me yours. Fantasy.
And this is the Smash Pod. Thanks for listening. Let's move this on to your pick. Who's a rook who's underrated right now? Who you want to grab on some of your teams?
Yeah, I made a bench guy to start the year, but I'm grabbing Jonathan Brooks, and he got drafted by the Panthers. And right now, the running back one there, the only person ahead of him is also really fun to say, but Chuba Hubbard. I had on my team last year. If you don't go Chuba, at least once, just significant other, and they looked at you really funny. Chuba. What are you even doing with your life? So, Chuba Hubbard, solid running back, probably an underrated running back.
Is it Chuba? I think it's Chuba.
Have I been saying it wrong for like 3 years?
I think you need to be saying Chuba.
That does not sound nearly as fun. I'm going to keep saying Chuba. But I will stop saying it to you.
It's not Nick.
That's
Chuba.
A whole different pun.
Yeah.
So look, Brooks was 21st in yards after contact, 9th in PFF's elusive rating last year in school, 12th in missed tackles per attempt. Chuba, whatever you want to call him, he's probably an underrated running back, but still he's not a guy that's going to hold back a rookie, especially on a team that wants to develop their youth. Brooks has to improve as a pass blocker. That's probably the main impediment to him being able to really be a 3-down back, which Carolina's going to trail us. They need someone who can be in there for passing downs.
Yep.
But I think by midseason, it's completely feasible he supplants Chuba.
And Miles Sanders not a threat out there, right? I think they had signed Sanders before last year, but I don't think he's a threat at all.
He is every bit as much of a threat as Quentin Johnston is to McConkey.
Yeah, defense is going to be a bit better, right? So,
I'm not telling you at all. I think Bryce, a disappointing season for number 1 pick overall. He didn't come set the world on fire, but the stats weren't awful. And I think with any progression and a better offensive line, they could have a much better
Deontay Johnson out there now, new coaching staff.
Exactly.
So I think their offense may be a little underrated. Not to say that they're going to set the world on fire, but Brooks is one of those guys, especially as a rookie. You're not counting on him in the initial weeks, especially right? He's still recovering from a late last year, but Brooks could be a guy that ends up really, really helping your teams in the second half of your season. So I love that. All right, so let's talk about some rookies who may be overrated. So they are rooks because of their pedigree, their collegiate output. They tend to be rated highly. Stick with you. Who do you have on your list of potential overrated rookies?
I'm going to start with a guy that I like, and you actually mentioned earlier, which is Rome Odunze. And I think that, as I say, Rome wasn't built in a day. And I think that as a rookie, it's going to take him a little time. Less because of pure talent necessarily, and more just because there's a lot of mouths to feed. Caleb Williams is a rookie quarterback, even if he has a good season. I mean, as good as CJ Stroud's season was last year, he still threw for only a little over 4,000 yards, which is great for a rookie. But we're not talking about Mahomes' 5,000-yard season here. So they already have Keenan Allen. They still have Dijon Moore. They still have Cole Kmet. And now they added DeAndre Swift, who is not only a good running back, but a credible pass-catching running back. Yeah. So there's just a lot of mouths to feed there. Obviously, with a couple of injuries, if things break correctly, he could still have a big year. But I'm just a little bit iffy on him, given everyone else they've got to throw to. And if they've got to spread 4,000 yards around, maybe closer to 3,000, 3,500, just becomes hard to support three receivers.
Like you said, you definitely need an injury to occur for some value, some real value to come out of Rome. Could be some overrating going on there. So I'm going to stick with wide receivers when it comes to overrating some rookies. And I'm going to name Xavier Worthy out in Kansas City. So he was Mahomes' guy. He was the guy that Mahomes wanted the Chiefs to pick up. And, they got him. But the Chiefs became more of a run-heavy team at the second half of last year and run to the Super Bowl. Now, granted, maybe that was due to their wide receiver room, and they did lead the league in drops last year, so maybe that was a strategic move. But you still got Travis Kelce. He's still out there. He's still going to be a force. They did sign Hollywood Brown. We just mentioned him minutes ago. And again, Brown is very much being a high-volume guy too. 146, basically 150 targets when he was in Baltimore a few years back. Rashee, for everything that we've discussed about him, he's still there. We don't know. Will be suspended. Could be 2 games, could be 4 games. But Rice was pretty talented, and before all these things happened, he was becoming a major factor in that offense. So
he is one designated driver away from being a really good football player.
I mean, you give him Uber, and you got a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2.
But Pat Mahomes at his house and downloaded the app for him. He's like,
why don't these guys just use Uber? I mean, it's a thing now, right? I remember a long time ago, we were just like, they're making so much money, just pay a private driver. But now it literally is so accessible. I don't get it, man. But anyway, here Kelce got 158 targets with a 26% target share. Rashee got 135 targets. There's a lot of competition for targets, so Worthy is not a lock. And I know he's got the speed that they like and want, but he's also still a rookie. And for every rookie that performs really well in a high level at the wide receiver position coming in, there's 3 or 4 who don't, right? So even with the new trend, it's going to be interesting to see who actually materializes out there as the lead wideout in Kansas City. And another thing, too, is Worthy is right now getting mocked ahead of guys like Raheem Mostert, Brock Purdy, Ladd McConkey, who's got all the opportunity we just talked about, Tajay Spears, Devin Singletary. I'd probably take positionally all those guys before I would take a flyer on Worthy. Not that Worthy's not good. It's just he's got too many question marks, too much competition. I like the role that those other guys play. So for that reason.
You're saying he's not worthy of that high of a pick.
I am out. So I'm out on Worthy. He's overrated.
You're good, but you're not replacing Cuban on the show anytime soon.
Yeah, Cuban's the man. So we want him to stick around. That wraps up our segment regarding rookies. It'll be interesting to see. I think most people will have some combination of rookies on their team.
Yeah.
We'll just have to see if you land, and hopefully that segment helps a couple of people out. So let's transition over. What's that?
Grab the right lad.
Add the grab. That doesn't sound right. That does not.
That sounds like right one of my Saturday nights. That's
even worse. Let's keep it moving. I feel like, much as we love the Niners, this is not the type of conversation I want us to keep having. But tensions are boiling in San Francisco with Brandon Aiyuk. And so recently on social this week, he had kind of a mysterious post where he was speaking to Jaden Daniels on a FaceTime call. And he said, they don't want me back. And that's very specific because everything I could look up and see, everyone who reported on this, no one quoted the 49ers don't want me back. It's just they don't want me back. And there's no 49ers, but
yeah, I mean, are we sure that Aiyuk isn't just, he hasn't gotten the contract? Is he one of those guys that, like, goes to a Starbucks, orders a coffee, sits on his laptop for like 9 hours, and maybe he was referring to Starbucks Corporation, didn't want
maybe the manager's like, sir, that's your third Americano today, and you've been here for too long, so you're going to have to leave. And he calls up Jaden Daniels. He's like, you know what, man? They don't want me back.
Yeah. Everyone's making assumptions, jumping to conclusions.
Who else could it be, right? So I think whether it's not them being the Niners wanting Aiyuk back or not, he's putting it out there knowing everyone's going to make that assumption. So either way, I don't think it's a good thing. So actually talking about this drama kind of over and over again because it seems like they're a little bit of an impasse. It's been reported that the Niners have made an offer in the neighborhood of $26 million a year, which is kind of crazy. But with skyrocketing salary caps and league revenue deals, like that's the going rate for a wide receiver one these days.
Kadarius drop passes for way less money than that. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, he'll drop passes for like $10 million a year. Yeah. We wanted to talk about if a trade were to actually happen, like what could the Niners actually legitimately hope for? Like, could it even end well, right? Because when you think about trading away someone like Brandon Aiyuk for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, it's like, what are you trying to actually get back in return that's going to help you? Like that's a piece you need. You don't need to get younger. You're not trying to build for the future. So, with the help of some of our good friends here at Smash Up, we had research done on looking at what are some viable or similar wide receiver one trades that historically, what did it net them? And did the outcome of those trades end up favorably for the team that had the diva, quote unquote, wide receiver?
I'm curious,
did it end up that well? Yeah. So here's the deal. There are a couple of names that probably fit the bill similarly to what we have going on here. So a couple of diva wide receivers that were traded either because they asked for it or circumstance dictated it. So we're talking Antonio Brown. We all know about Antonio Brown. He's wild. OBJ, Devon Adams, Tyler, DeAndre Hopkins. So those are all pretty big-time wide receiver ones that have been moved, right? Okay. So we kind of bucketed them subjectively, but objectively could to determine positive and negative outcomes. So the good, Antonio Brown. He went from Pittsburgh to Las Vegas. He netted a pretty good return for Pittsburgh. OBJ to Cleveland from the Giants. That ended up favorably. A combination of first and third round pick. They got a receiver. Devontae Adams. He went to the Raiders from Green Bay. And again, they netted some draft picks in terms of the
you're
bad.
in pretty good shape if you're trading with the Raiders, right? Like that's just a good start.
I think that's your first call. If you got like a marquee name, you're calling the Raiders like, hey, what do you want to give us? And they're like 2 firsts, 3 seconds, 4 thirds, and a fifth. It's like, okay, it's a good starting point.
First you call Vlade Divac, and he's like, I'm not even a GM anymore. When I was the NBA. Then you say, okay, now I'm going to call the Raiders. And then
Vlade's like, I can't help you, but I think you should call the Raiders.
Even I know that. Even I know to call the Raiders. This is my first stop.
So those trades had a pretty positive outcome for those teams. Whereas the bad and the ugly, Tyreek Hill didn't really net anything of value quite yet for the Chiefs, who obviously famously traded Tyreek to Miami. Doing pretty well for Miami so far. I mean, he's just continued to kill it out there. And
maybe
then
the best receiver in the game.
And DeAndre Hopkins, he was traded from Houston to Arizona. Hopkins had okay season or two. Obviously, he's not even in Arizona anymore. They got back a couple of picks. And so I think that you can reasonably see that trading one of these wide receivers, which the Niners maybe they're contemplating, you could probably get a first and a third, maybe a second and a third, second and fourth. But that's probably what you can expect as like fair market value in return for who led your team in receiving yardage and is a phenomenal blocker and is a core member of your team. Like, what do you think of this? Is this something that's reasonable? Should the Niners be doing something like this if that's the return they should expect?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I was looking through some of the research you did, and the times it worked out for the team making the trade, the receivers either got hurt or were kind of, had issues like Antonio Brown, right? Uh, Adams got banged up on the Raiders. Brown and OBJ both kind of were really having some personality problems with their new teams. The other receivers where it did not work out were people who remind me more of Aiyuk, where they're prime receivers, middle of their career, highly productive. I don't know. For me, it's just really hard to see the Niners getting anything near the return they need, unless it's from the Raiders. So basically, trade them to the Raiders. If the Raiders say no, just keep it.
And and we're Niners fans.
Yeah.
Like, do I want them to lose a top 12 wide receiver in the game right now?
No.
And get back a first round pick, third round pick for next year and the year after? It's like, no, our window is now. Like, this is when teams that have those picks cash them in for a guy like Aiyuk, right? So
yeah, imagine the reverse. Imagine that our receiver room was like Debo and a rookie and Kittles, and we were one receiver away. If a team came to us and said, we will give you Aiyuk for a first and a third round pick,
you do it. Yeah.
We do it in a second, right? Lynch would pull the trigger.
Exactly. And I think just thinking that and knowing that, and then also knowing that we're the driver's seat from a contract perspective, like he's under contract for another year. We could franchise tag him. Like they have all of the leverage right now. And I think that's maybe why Aiyuk is lashing out, because he knows he doesn't have much leverage. So interesting. So I think we're all on the same page here. So Brandon Aiyuk, just buckle up. You're in for another Super Bowl run. Let's do it, baby. Come on.
Yeah. Come on. Just listen to me.
Come on, man. Let's do it, man. All right. Let's switch gears over to ball, and not only basketball,
Woo!
but one of our favorite segments of all time, role players. So, in light of the news out of LA, here in LA, actually, JJ Reddick, fellow pod host with LeBron James, is now going to be his coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. Because let's be honest, we know LeBron runs things over there, right? So that's going to be an interesting dynamic, right? Because he's his host of the podcast they have, they're friends. Like, what's that dynamic like? I think that's what we want to dive into today.
Maybe that's the deal. He's like, listen, I'll let you lead host the pod, LeBron. You let me lead coach the Lakers. It's like an even trade.
Like, how awkward is it going to be when they inevitably clash on decision-making, strategic approach? Actually, that's what we're going to dive into right now.
So why I don't coach your league basketball teams anymore?
And, under 13, 5'2" is a tough league. So it's best that you just let me play and you just coach somewhere else.
We had to make that rough sacrifice. But
okay.
Let's do this.
You're JJ Reddick, my favorite basketball player of all. Why does it make sense?
We're both sweet shooter. Oh, I mean, I think you're complimenting my jump shot. I shoot like Reddick. We look a little bit alike.
Reddick than Reddick, but it's fine.
That's true.
Since I love LeBron so much, so much. As
LeBron. A Warriors fan, this might be a very uncomplimentary version of LeBron. So listeners, buckle up.
Hey, I will play LeBron as his actual asshole.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sure
I take this very seriously. I'm a thespian. I will not overact when I'm LeBron in a second here.
All right, let's see. Let's get into it. Let's see.
All right, so we're gonna set the stage a little bit. LeBron and Reddick are excited. They're working together, and it's their first meeting, and they're gonna be talking strategy. All right, JJ Reddick, I'm LeBron. All right, let's do it.
Hey, LeBron, good to see you.
Hey Jay, how's it going?
JJ, but yeah, no, we're here.
JJ,
I'm your coach.
JJ.
I'm your coach.
Hey, man, that's awesome, man. I mean, I know we have you on the pod too. It's great that you help research things and stuff like that in the background. But I'm excited.
Our pod, right? Our pod together
on the pod.
Yeah.
I'm excited, but I'm excited for you to be part of the Lakers too. Welcome.
Thank you, man. I'm sure you vouched for me, and I'm excited to be here. So just want to sit down with you real quick, talk a little offensive scheme. I'm thinking maybe this year we move to a 5 out, run a few Spain sets. I just want to
wait. Hold on. What are you doing?
The offense. I'm drawing up some things I think will really highlight your strengths and get AD involved and get Reeves.
Hey, touches. You know what, Don't worry about it. Okay, I got the offense. We're good.
JJ.
Who's JJ?
Sorry, keep going. Keep going.
I got the offense. Okay, I run the offense. We run the offense through me. I create. I score. I get buckets. I draw fouls. I flop. I score buckets. It's good. You can hold the clipboard. You know.
Okay.
You seem to have a great tailor. I've seen your suits. You look good. You look good with you hold the clipboard.
You do that. Yeah, I mean, but like occasionally
offense
I can give some.
Don't worry about it. We're good.
Okay. But totally fair. Because I've also been working on some defensive schemes. I want us to get back. I want you to get to the nail position. I want to actually work on maybe instilling a little bit of zone this year. I want us to get chemists. You're looking at me funny.
You're doing it again.
I thought you did offense.
I do everything. All right. I direct offense, defense. I substitute players in and out. I do substitution patterns. I will tell you to wear on what game days. I might even let you know where games are at. So, don't worry about it. JN, like, we got this. You're JJ. Just here. JJ. You just are here to collect content information for our podcast. So I think it's a great spot for you. So I'm excited.
But I still get to call timeouts and like call a challenge, right?
Yeah, sure you do. I'll tell you. I'd be like, hey, LP, call a timeout. Challenge that.
JJ. Yeah. No, okay. So what exactly do I do here then? Like, what's I thought it was head coach.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I mean, you'll call the challenges when I tell you to. You'll take the blame for when things go wrong. When people get injured, I'll say the substitution patterns are wrong. When we're on a down streak, I'll let them know that you didn't install the right offense and we haven't been practicing the right plays and offense. I
thought it was your offense.
Oh well.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good LeBron, bad JJ.
Yeah.
God, this is what Darvin Ham drunk dialed me the other night crying. Is this what he wanted to tell me?
We don't talk about Darvin Ham around here. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, does that sound good? I mean, you've got a pretty cush roll here. Like you don't have.
I still think there's some things we collaborate on. How about we go out to dinner and we talk about it. We get that coach player chemistry right.
We can maybe grab a meal sometime, or I don't know. But we'll see. I'll let you know.
And I didn't know for Darvin, but you're just gonna follow me back on Instagram.
I didn't follow Darvin, but I'll follow you, PJ.
I mean, it's JJ. When you look me up on Insta, it's JJ.
Oh, JJ. You know what? I'm sorry. I'm not going to follow you, JJ. I just can't do it. Sorry.
It doesn't seem like you'll follow me here, but maybe you'll follow me if we play Smash Up Sports, and I could try to beat you there and show you I know a thing or two about basketball, football.
Oh, Smash Up Fancy Sports.
Awesome. I'll take it. Do you think that's? I mean, that's not a competition. We have a bug. Do you think JJ had a good spirits about that?
We joke, but I think the conversation is probably not going to be completely different from what I just went. Like, I mean, yeah. I'm sure LeBron is going to have his commentary and thoughts on things that JJ installs. This is not Pat Riley or Phil Jackson walking through the door and LeBron's like, okay, I'll hear you out. Like, he's like, nah, JJ, you're my guy. You're listening to me.
Like, LeBron is like knocked JJ out of the playoffs. Like, I mean, that's kind of hard. JJ's going to be like, hey, I know how to win the playoffs. LeBron will be like, how many rings do you have? I beat you in the playoffs. Maybe I can teach you how to win in the playoffs.
Exactly. Like, I just don't. I'm not saying it couldn't work. Obviously, there's, coaches without experience have stepped into teams before and had some success. Doc Rivers, who's not a great coach, but he's had success. And obviously, a big part of that initial Warriors turnaround didn't get them over the hump, but they started winning. I'm not saying that. Again, my point is these guys didn't take them to the promised land immediately per se, but there's some success to be had. But it'll be interesting to see how that relationship works out.
Well, and maybe that's why it can work, right? Maybe it can work mostly because most coaches are kind of overrated. You had a few great coaches, a few terrible coaches, and a lot of guys who get the wins you expect from the talent. It's more about managing personalities. And JJ, he knows his X's and O's. He can probably manage personalities, and
That's a big personality to manage, though, man. Like, it's LeBron James. He's gonna do whatever the hell he wants, you know?
yeah, I listen.
I mean, Hawk, do you think that honestly he's gonna listen to JJ Reddick at all, or is JJ just gonna?
This is why I had to stop coaching your team, Ming, because I had to deal with your personality. You're like,
was I LeBron
Ming,
James too?
Ming, go over here. Shut up,
No.
Chris. I got the offense.
I'm shooting it.
Well, we know you weren't passing it, but
play point guard, man. I'll pass the ball.
Not to me, because I wasn't shooting it well.
Something. Now you get it. That's why your POV is like that. No, but yeah, I think it'll be interesting because I actually really like JJ. Like as a basketball brain, like I love his breakdown and commentary. That's why I actually like him as a podcast host. I like him as an analyst on TV because I like his takes. I think he has the right perspective. Can he translate that into an actual coaching role? So we'll have to see.
Yeah, will he be Mark Jackson or will he be David Blatt?
We'll see, but it'll be interesting in LA like it always is. All right, let's bring it over to our next segment, our final segment, which is always going to be a quick hit, around the horn style, chef's table. We're going to dissect some of the hot topics. And we're going to start things off with the WNBA, just growing in popularity, which is awesome to see and hear. Some not so great news. Cameron Brink, one of the stars, or rising stars, I should say, of the WNBA. She is now out for the season. Unfortunately, tore her ACL the other night. Got injured on a drive at the beginning of Tuesday's game against the Connecticut Sun. And unfortunately, like you hate to see it, she went down. And, I think instantly people knew it was an ACL situation. So I tore my ACL a couple years back. Not quite the same, but I have now officially retired. I never played another game after that. Hopefully she comes back. Super young. I think we're all hoping for her. But interestingly enough, Cameron Brink, she was on the day team, and now that she's out, this may open the door for Caitlin Clark. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's possible. But Cameron looked number 2 pick in the draft, so I think we'll see with Caitlin. She could get on the team, but I think more than anything, we just wish Cameron well and hope that she gets back next season. Was off to a great start. I think a bright young talent.
Wishing her all the best, and I'm sure we'll see her back soon. All right.
Also, if you get back on the court, maybe you and Cameron can both come back for different LA teams. Her the Sparks, you the whatever your local
YMCA team.
Local YMCA.
I think if you're listening to this, let's work out. Let's do it. All right.
Only not going to pass you the ball, Cameron, but
if you shoot like Chris, then no, I will not pass you the ball, and I will double down on that. On the horn to our last topic. So in NBA news, or related NBA news to our role players. So on the coaching front, Monty was fired in Detroit after 1 year, which is crazy because he still had $65 million left on his deal. And when you bring a coach like Monty Williams over to a team like the Detroit Pistons, what are you really expecting to happen in 1 year? Was that even enough time for him to do anything? What do you think?
It was just a bad setup. I think from the beginning, from everything I've heard, he really didn't want to be there, and he ultimately just got lured by the money. They kept raising the offer. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of George Karl with the Kings. We were so excited to get him. We had Cousins. He immediately started trying to trade Cousins as a coach, and he just really didn't want to be there. He's just happy to get a bunch of money, and it kind of shows you can't just throw a bunch of money at people. They actually have to want the job. And it was a disaster in Detroit. His rotations were a mess. I think this is for the best, but obviously Troy Weaver's got to prove it this year too. So
yeah,
interesting.
I agree with what you said. That also tells me then something's broken in the process. You can probably get your hands on a great coach and pay him a lot of money, but if you're not sensing the connection, the vision, the buy-in, is that the person you want? And the Pistons have had the worst record in the NBA 2 years in a row now, and now you're firing a respected coach after 1 year. So I don't know if things are working the way that fans are hoping out in Detroit, but we'll see.
Second former coach of the year that they're letting go of in 2 years. Presti's a great GM. Weaver's got to prove that he's at the same caliber, and maybe not.
I mean, it's not really looking that way. But related to that, JJ Reddick, obviously, we just talked about, hired as the coach of the Lakers. And we kind of talked about this a little bit, but zero coaching experience. Do we think he's going to be successful? Just quick thoughts on that. Yes, no, maybe.
Yes, minus. To give it a grading thing, I mean, look, I think that there's enough veteran talent in the Lakers. I think Reddick knows the X's and O's. I think it's going to be more about managing personalities than managing a clipboard.
Yep.
It'll be a challenge.
Okay.
It'll be hard. The Lakers are not a complete team, but I don't think it's like a lack of know-how that'll hold JJ back.
He signed for 4 years. Over under on how many years that he stays as the coach for the Lakers?
Under
4 years? Oof.
Under. I mean, first 4 years, since JJ, really, how long is he going to last if they rebuild and win 17 games?
Sure. Interesting. I think Monty being fired with Reddick having little experience, Monty actually could be part of Reddick's coaching staff.
That would be a fantastic move for the Lakers.
Right? Because usually young coaches with little experience, they'll usually bring in a really experienced lead assistant or something like that. So I think that actually could be a good pairing, and the timing is actually really, really good as well. We'll squeeze this in. There was just a Thunder and Bulls trade announced, which was the kickoff of the NBA offseason right after the finals about a week ago. Josh Giddey traded for Alex Caruso, a.k.a. AC Fresh, favorite here in LA. But it's like, I like it for both. I think it actually helps both teams. I think Caruso probably is not what the Bulls need right now. Actually, Caruso is what every team needs, which is like a defender, facilitator, can hit the three. And he fits much more nicely into that starting five for OKC than Giddey did. There's just too much duplication of ball handling and distribution, and they needed more shooting and more defense in that starting five, and Caruso is going to give it to them. And in return, Chicago gets a playmaker. They get young, a little bit younger. They have talent. I mean, Giddey still has some room to grow, and there's going to be more offensive responsibility put on his shoulders, because who knows what's going to happen to Lonzo and if he's ever going to make it back. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you agree with that, or do you have a little slightly different take on that trade?
Yeah, let me take a different angle. So totally agree with what you said on the trade front. I just want to go back to Presti again. Presti is such an impressive general manager. And I think here what you're seeing is he's not falling into the sunk cost fallacy. Giddey has not lived quite up to the hype, does not fit well with the team. He's young. It'll be really easy to hold out or have a lot of ego given how high he was drafted. And instead, he moves him for a piece that is just perfect for Oklahoma City. And I think, again, this just shows how Presti's willing to do what it takes to win, and just how smart of a general manager he is.
I'm just surprised he didn't get and like 3 draft picks as in return as well. So he's just like stockpiling all these picks.
If Vlade was still in the league, he sure. Like, Vlade, are you sure you're not back in the NBA? Okay, let me call the Bulls instead.
Well, that wraps up our episode. And always appreciate everyone listening along. We're excited to continue to talk about sports, fantasy sports, but also kick off Smash Up Fantasy Sports for you, which we'll talk more about in our upcoming episodes. But Chris, why don't you let everyone know how they can continue to follow along and then hear more about Smash Up, which will be kicking off shortly.
Yeah. First things first, subscribe on whatever podcast software you're listening to. Make sure that you go to smashupsports.com and register. Sign up to get the email so you can know as soon as registration is open for all the different free-to-play games. And then, of course, look down the description below and follow us on social media, including Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and even YouTube.
Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Smash Pod.